All right, let's talk about dry needling. If you've ever dealt with that nagging muscle pain that just won't go away, you've probably heard someone mention it. I mean, it's kind of blown up in popularity. Some people swear by it, calling it a miracle cure, while others, well, they're not so sure, calling it a total myth. So, what's the real story? What does the science actually say? Well, today we're going to dive deep into the highest level of evidence to find out. But before we even get into the whole needle thing, let's just take a step back. I mean, why are we even talking about this? The reason is pretty simple, actually. So many of us are just dealing with a world of pain. You know what I'm talking about? That nagging neck ache, that back pain that can just completely knock you out. This stuff isn't just an inconvenience. For a lot of people, these are the kinds of issues that lead to long-term disability, and it's happening all over the world. So yeah, it's a massive problem, and we're all desperately looking for solutions that actually work. And that brings us right back to our central question. In this huge, kind of confusing world of pain management, could something so incredibly simple, a tiny little needle, could it really be a powerful solution? All right, so let's get right into it. Before we can even start to look at the evidence, we've got to understand what this treatment is all about. So, what exactly is dry needling? So the whole idea behind this treatment really starts with something called myofascial trigger points. Now, that's a mouthful, right? But you definitely know what they are. We call them knots. Yep, those are the ones, those super tender, irritable spots deep in your muscles, the ones that can hurt right there, or sometimes they even send pain shooting off to totally different parts of your body. So, dry needling is basically the practice of taking a really, really thin needle and inserting it directly into one of those trigger points, one of those knots. And the goal? It's pretty straightforward. Release that tension, knock down the pain, and hopefully get the muscle working the way it's supposed to again. And that word dry is actually really important here. This is what separates it from something called wet needling. With wet needling, you're injecting something, like a local anesthetic or a steroid. But with dry needling, nope, it's just the needle. No medication, no liquid at all. The whole idea is that the physical action of the needle itself is what does the trick. Okay, so here's the million-dollar question, right? Does this stuff actually work? Well, to get a real solid answer, scientists decided they couldn't just look at one or two studies. No, they needed to take a huge step back and look at the entire picture of all the evidence out there. And to do that, they did something called an umbrella review. Now, a normal scientific review, it looks at a bunch of individual studies. But an umbrella review, it goes a level higher. It looks at all the reviews that have already been published. Think of it like a poll of polls. It's basically the highest, most complete view of all the scientific evidence you can possibly get on a topic. And just to give you a sense of scale here, to show you how seriously they took this, their process started by digging through a whole bunch of scientific databases and pulling out nearly 2,300 different studies and records. And from that massive starting pool, they had this super strict filtering process. They basically whittled it all the way down to focus on only the best of the best. And they were left with just 36 of the absolute highest quality reviews on the subject. But get this, those 36 reviews, they included data from, wait for it, almost 25,000 individual patients. So we're not talking about the opinion from just one little study here. This is a massive synthesis of evidence on a huge, huge scale. All right, so now for the main event. After all that work, what did this enormous body of evidence actually tell us? What do they find out about how effective dry needling is for different parts of the body? Okay, so if you remember one thing, let it be this. The single biggest finding was that across the board, dry needling is better than doing nothing at all or getting a fake treatment when it comes to short-term pain relief. And look, I know short-term might not sound like a miracle, but if you're the one living with constant pain, even a few days of relief can be an absolute game changer. It's a window of opportunity to move, to exercise, to just start feeling normal again. But here's where the story gets a little more nuanced. The evidence isn't the same for every part of the body. For neck pain, the evidence is so good that scientists give it a strong recommendation for short-term relief. For shoulder pain, it's more of a moderate recommendation. It works, but it's pretty much on par with other treatments. Headaches? Yeah, it can help reduce how often you get them and just generally improve your quality of life. And then for your lower back or your heel, it's effective, but it seems to work best when you pair it with other things, like physical therapy. In fact, for neck pain, the researchers didn't mince words at all. They came right out and said it, making a strong recommendation and calling it superior for reducing pain in the short term. And trust me, in the world of scientific papers, that is about as direct and confident as it gets. But look, pain relief is fantastic, but it's not the whole story, is it? What about actually being able to move better? What about your overall function? Well, on that front, the evidence is kind of mixed, a little all over the place. But when it comes to reducing actual disability, there seems to be a magic formula. Combining dry needling with physical therapy works better than doing either one by itself. And what about the long run, the long-term effects? Honestly, the data there is still pretty limited. We just need more research. Okay, so let's pull all of this together. After going through this mountain of research, what's the final verdict? What are the main things you really need to know? All right, here's the bottom line, boiled down. First, yes, it's effective for short-term pain relief when you compare it to doing nothing. Second, it's not some magic bullet that's way better than everything else. It's generally not superior to other solid treatments like physical therapy, but it's a totally valid alternative. Third, it seems to shine brightest when it's just one piece of a bigger treatment plan, something that also includes exercise. And finally, and this is a big one, it's considered very safe. The most common complaint is just a little soreness afterward, which is pretty minor. This chart really says it all, doesn't it? Look, compared to no treatment, dry needling has a clear, positive effect, no doubt about it. But when you put it up against other treatments, the effect is basically the same. So that tells you something really important. It's a useful tool in the toolbox, but it's not necessarily a better tool. So where do we land? Miracle cure or medical myth? Well, after sifting through all this evidence, the answer is neither. It's not a miracle cure that will magically fix everything, but it is absolutely not a myth. It's a legitimate, scientifically backed tool for short-term pain relief. And that leaves us with a real question, the one that the science can't answer for you. Is it the right tool for you?